joining tonight. It's a lovely day, brilliant, not British weather. Alright, so I hope you guys are enjoying the weather.
Yes, we are.
They say that it's here to stay. So I see Ash and you guys want to come around. Yes. Brilliant. So, yeah, apologies about that. Apparently there was a mix-up, because they're here like first and this third Friday, but because it was different, the first Friday was last Friday, obviously, but yeah, usually we have a big service, but that was changed, so we'll sort that out. But yeah, so glad to have you here. As you know, we will continue the series about small groups,
Yes.
trainings,
Hello.
and I hope that's going well. You remember the previous sessions? So we had the first session when DJ and Joan spoke about what is a small group. Then we had the second one, which was entitled To Know and Be Known, where Karen Lewis and Bianca and Heinrich shared. Then we had the third one, To Encourage and Be Encouraged. It was Archie and his daughter Maria. And tonight we have the fourth one, which is entitled To Encourage and Be To Celebrate and Be Celebrated. Yes.
Same thing.
See, you can see. Yeah, it's,
You can encourage.
yeah. I don't know why they've chosen me and Adina to discuss about this. It's yeah, because we know how to celebrate. I don't think that's necessarily true, but you have a joke. There's a joke. John is a peasant. So he goes to the fair with his horse, an old skinny horse, and everybody's like, okay, so what can this horse do? Can he carry a lot of weight? Like, no. Oh, can he jump the fence? He's like, no. Like, actually, he can't even see that well. And they're like, oh, why did you bring him here? To shame him. To shame him. To do more work. Maybe that's why we're doing this lesson. Hi guys, sorry. So yeah, maybe that's why we're here too. No, but it's kind of true because doing a lot of work and research and trying to find this, I feel like we personally benefited a lot. We learned a lot from this, so we're excited to share with you some of the things. All right. So, but before we share, can some of you share? Can you share something that you have celebrated recently? Really?
Lily's first birthday.
Your granddaughter. All right.
I'm not even aware.
Okay. Mike?
I went to celebrate one of my friends, some of us might know, John Marty, was his masters. So we celebrated his birthday.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I'm saying this knowing that it's not results day yet, but celebrating that my daughter's finished her GCSEs. And we actually celebrated, and we gave her a great reward and said, look, actually, we're rewarding your effort. Because
Wow.
we don't actually care what your results are now. She's done so well. So we just celebrated. It was great.
That is so amazing.
That's amazing.
That's something that we've never done.
We only celebrate results.
Anyone else?
Well, I was just going to say, like, I don't know who else would say that, celebrated being a mature singles retreat. We did a mean singing karaoke.
We did it.
And did you?
Ready?
And did you?
We did.
Come on.
So it's a different kind of celebration.
Okay.
We've had quite a lot of deaths in my family, but the deaths of a lot of older people. So we've been doing a lot of celebration of life. And it's unbelievable how hearing stories of some of my uncles from maybe their friends who had known them before I was ever born, or people who had been walked rates with them, sharing about who they were, and then listening to their own children share about their parents. Their relationship is completely different from the kind of relationship I had with them. I think I had a better copy of their kids probably did. And I'm sure it will be the same with my parents when the time comes. But just celebrating older people's life has been amazing. Where I come from, when you're over 70, we party and we die. We don't cry. Because you've got children, you've got grandchildren, you've achieved, well, hopefully you've achieved quite a number of things that people can look back and say, that was an example to follow. So that's what we're celebrating.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, really. Everybody has this, right. So thank you for sharing. That is great. And just to clarify, we didn't go back to the old days where we locked the doors. It was not just you guys. So there was a breakdown in communication, whatever. They didn't know we're coming, but we forced our way through the back door.
Sorry, class.
So, yeah, like I was saying, I don't know exactly like why me and Adina were chosen for this topic to share about celebrating, because we don't have, I don't know. For example, me, I grew up in a, it was nice to hear Ayo saying, you know, how they do. Now if I tell you, I don't want to depress you, but the way I was raised, there were a lot of celebrations. I grew up in communism in Romania, so things were like kept under the covers, and you were not really showing off with a lot of things. But especially in my family, you know, my parents, there wasn't a lot of celebration. For example, they celebrated my first birthday party when I turned 18. And not even that was on my birthday, it was 2 months later because a death in the family. Or, I don't know, let's say I was going to school, and at the end of the school, you know, there's graduation and they give awards to people and things like that. My parents never came to me with those awards, you know. And I got home with, you know, with the certificate, the diploma. I got third prize. So they're like, oh, who got first prize? But I was already used to, because every day I would come home, I was like, oh, I got a 9 in my test. Like, oh, who got a 10? You know, like I got a 10 in my test. Like, oh, who else got a 10? That was kind of the celebration I grew up with, and you know, like I'm trying to break away from it, but it's really hard. You know, it somehow is really ingrained in the way you are. So, however, you know, preparing for this lesson made me realize that celebrating is a really important part of life. You know, it starts with your perspective and what you really choose to focus on. And we want to show you a little clip to kind of get you thinking.
Existence, the physical universe, is basically playful. There is no necessity for it whatsoever. It isn't going anywhere. That is to say, it doesn't have some destination that it ought to arrive at. But that it is best understood by analogy with music. travel, you are trying to get somewhere. One doesn't make the end of a composition the point of the composition. If that were so, the best conductors would be those who played fastest. And there would be composers who wrote only finales. People go to concert just to hear one crashing chord, because that's the end. Same way dancing. You don't aim at a particular spot in the room. That's where you should arrive. The whole point of the dancing is the dance. Now, but we don't see that as something brought by our education into our everyday conduct. We've got a system of schooling which gives a completely different impression. It's all graded. And what we do is we put the child into the corridor of this grade system with a kind of, come on, kitty, kitty, kitty. And yeah, you go to kindergarten, you know. And that's a great thing, because when you finish that, you get into first grade. And then, come on, first grade leads to second grade, and so on. And then you get out of grade school, you go to high school, and it's revving up, the thing is coming. Then you're going to go to college, and by Jove, then you get into graduate school. And when you're through with graduate school, you go out to join the world. And then you get into some racket where you're selling insurance. And they've got that quota to make. And you're going to make that. And all the time, the thing is coming. It's coming. It's coming. That great thing, the success you're working for. Then when you wake up one day about 40 years old, you say, my God, I've arrived. I'm there. And you don't feel very different from what you always felt. By expectation. Look at the people who live to retire and put those savings away. And then when they're 65, they don't have any energy left, they're more or less impotent, and they go and rot in an old people's, senior citizens community. Because we've simply cheated ourselves the whole way down the line. We thought of life by analogy with a journey, with a pilgrimage, which had a serious purpose at the end, and the thing was to get to that end. Success or whatever it is, or maybe heaven after you're dead. But we missed the point the whole way along. It was a musical thing, and you were supposed to sing or to dance while the music was being played.
It's fast.
All right. So very interesting, right? Have you ever thought about it like that? Life is like music. The truth is, you know, sometimes we don't take time to stop and celebrate, you know, because we live in this fast-paced, achievement-focused world, you know, where it's the next thing to achieve, that and that. Always looking for the next stop, next step on the ladder, but how often do we pause to celebrate? You know? In reality, music is closely related to celebration when you think about it. You know, have you ever been to a celebration in the audience? Maybe you have, but it wasn't such a great celebration. The Bible talks quite a bit actually about celebration. In many ways, celebration is play. It's returning to that childlike mind, heart, you know, that Jesus talks about. That many of us kind of tend to lose when we grow.
I think it's so strange to talk about celebration in this crazy world we live in. It sometimes, to me, it feels unfit, almost, to talk about celebration. That's how dark and gloomy it can be sometimes. But to me, when I think of celebration, it all starts with the mindset, with the perspective that I have. You have to have a positive outlook on life in order to celebrate life. If you only see the dark, you won't be able to celebrate much. And like we see in this video, is the, you know, it's the journey. It's possibly the very small things in life that we neglect to celebrate. And I think I have this analogy with tennis because we love tennis, Marius and I. We love to play tennis, something similar to tennis.
Our version of it.
Can't really call it tennis, but anyway, let's call it tennis. But did you see how in tennis, like if you watch Wimbledon, every single point is celebrated.
Yeah.
Every single victory is like, yes, come on. Like, and I feel like I want to be like that with life, you know. I want to celebrate every small victory, every small point won. But am I like that? Do I have that mindset, like Marius was saying? No. I tend to celebrate the big things in life, milestones, you know. I'm not even gonna celebrate my birthday every year, unless it's every 10 years. It's not worth celebrating, you know. So round numbers. I was recently again put to shame, like Marius was saying, because Amalia finished college. She applied for universities, right? And she got a few conditional offers.
5.
So we get this phone call, and we hear that she's out celebrating with Sean's mom. Sean's mom took her out to celebrate the fact that she got the conditional offer.
Yes.
So Marius and I were like, what are they celebrating actually?
She couldn't get in, right?
It's not like she got in this. I don't understand what they're celebrating, you know. So just for you to get a glimpse of where we're at with celebrating. But in preparation for this lesson, we took a deeper look in the Bible and we realized some really, really important things.
So here's some biblical foundations for celebrations. In Ecclesiastes 2, 24 and 25 says, a person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their own labor. These two I see is from the hand of God, for without Him, who can earn or find, who can eat or find joy? So Ecclesiastes reminds us that life is meaningless unless we find joy and play. You know, what's the point of gaining the world if you can't enjoy it, right? In fact, God commands celebration, right? If you look in the Old Testament, in Torah, in Leviticus, you'll find the Passover, which commemorates the deliverance from Egypt, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, you know, it remembers the haste of the Exodus, the celebration of first fruits, when they were offering the first of the harvest, the feasts of the weeks, the trumpets, the Day of Atonement, Tabernacles, all of them found in Leviticus. Why do you think God commanded people to have those celebrations?
That was a sense of achievement.
Good?
That was a sense of achievement. Like, if you work hard for something,
You can enjoy the fruit of it.
exactly. You enjoy what you worked hard for it, you achieved this. You know, well done. You've gone through the hard to get to this point. You did it, well done. God wants us to celebrate life.
I think also to be able to see what God is doing in your life. In your heart. Everything we do, and we do work hard, it's not our hard work that brings the achievement for us, it's God. And in order to see what He's doing and celebrating and praising Him and glorifying His name for what He's done, God wants to remind us that He's the one doing this.
Yeah.
Tony?
I think it's also the thing you don't forget.
Yep.
At the end of it, it's so easy just to say by the repetition keeps reminding you it's been good times.
Yeah.
It also shows there's something about God that we don't always understand, is that He's a party animal. He really wants to party with us. He expects us to
Yeah.
enjoy time with Him, to
Yeah.
enjoy life with Him.
Mm.
And it's You know, it's so much that you wrote it into the Jewish law that you shall have fun.
Yeah.
You shall party with me.
I mean, when you think about it, in the Garden of Eden, right? This is what Adam and Eve were meant to do. Just live with God. They weren't meant to do work or do this or that. That was the whole purpose.
And that scripture where God says to live life to the full. And he wants us to enjoy our lives. It's not all about hard work. He's wanting us to enjoy what we've done, be able to enjoy that hard work, celebrate that hard work that we've done. And yeah, like Lily says, he wants us to enjoy our lives, celebrate that.
Yeah, the Bible very clearly says, give thanks in all circumstances. We need to be thankful. There's so many things actually you can think about and be thankful. The very fact that you're alive today and you're breathing, you should be thankful. There's so many things, even the whole list of things you can be thankful for. That's really, really important because, all around us there's, as you said, there's all sorts of things going on. If you start focusing on the negatives, you soon get discouraged and get depressed. So there is such an importance of having a thankful spirit and just celebrating life and being grateful. The Bible says He's blessed us with every spiritual blessing there is in Christ. There's so many blessings if you actually look at them in the Bible.
Yeah, brilliant. John.
Yeah, so I think if you look in Psalms, so many times it says about sing and make music to the Lord, and I think you talked about the festivals that the Jewish people have. Those, kind of reminders of the history of Israel and the times when God stepped in and rescued them or blessed them with an abundance of crops or whatever, and so by God commanding them to have those celebrations, He's reminding them who they are and who He is, and the best way to have those memories is have a party. So
Brilliant. All right, thank you. Thanks for sharing. When you look at Jesus, did Jesus celebrate? Yeah, he celebrated too. As a Jewish man, he participated in a lot of those celebrations. Luke 2, 41, 42, as a child, he went to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. John 2, early in his ministry, he also attended Passover. Matthew 26, the Last Supper, that was also a celebration meal with his closest friends. John 7, when he attends the Feast of Tabernacles. John 10, when he goes to Jerusalem, it is there for Hanukkah, the Feast of Dedication. In Matthew 11, verses 18 and 19 says, "For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they said, look at this glutton and drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is vindicated by her actions." Jesus was no stranger to feasting and celebration, and that was a big part of his ministry actually.
And just as there's no real celebration without music, in my opinion, there's no real celebration without food.
Amen.
So we often see Jesus actually preparing a meal for his disciples, which I think it's just remarkable. Like we see Jesus waiting on the riverbanks right after his resurrection with a bride for his disciples.
Yes, a bride.
Like a bride, right? And I think for all of us, that's a language of love, like for the majority of us, right? Love transpires in that way, through a meal cooked. And he chooses to spend that time with with his disciples, we often see him celebrating alone. Who celebrates alone? I think that's one of the major points that we need to understand. That you have to have the closest people around you in order to be able to celebrate them. In order to get that taste of life, you need people around you. There's the togetherness, right? In what Jesus does with his disciples, that is the crucial aspect of whatever he did to celebrate. He was together with people. No one likes to celebrate on their own, right? And I think that's exactly what we're doing in our small groups. I have to say that with our small group, I don't know if you guys feel the same, but to me, it's like a feast and a celebration every time we get together because we share amazing food. We always eat together, we share our lives, and this has been going on for a number of months now. And I feel like these times together are changing us. Like I look at the way we were, I don't know what you all think, but I feel like we've changed in so many ways by the togetherness that we have in celebrating and sharing the meal together, in sharing our lives together, it changed us. It helps some of us go out of our shells, maybe. It helps some of us learn to love deeper, thinking myself. It helps some of us speak less. Again, I'm thinking of myself. And it ultimately changed us.
So we are called to celebrate, right? As Christians, we're not bound by a religious calendar, like other religions have. But we are called to be joyful and rejoice. And there's plenty of scripture that talk about this. Philippians 4, Thessalonians 5, verse 16, Romans 5:11. Romans 12:15 says, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. So, what does it look like to truly celebrate and be celebrated in our small groups? Well, first of all, it starts with connection, right? Because, yeah, we celebrate birthday, job promotions, but even our colleagues at work do that, right? We have these little celebrations for people because, working together, you get to know each other and, appreciate each other. But celebration in Christian community isn't just about birthdays and milestones. It's about recognizing the image of God in one another. About honoring growth, about practicing gratitude together. So here's some practical ways we can live this out in our groups. How to celebrate others? Well, take some time to affirm somebody's character, growth, or their faith journey. Sometimes we forget one major thing. We are still in training. We are work in progress, right? Sometimes, you look at me. I go to restaurants and I get so frustrated because somebody is really slow. And like, oh, what are they doing? And then I say, I'm in training. It's gotta learn, sometime, whatever. Sometimes we forget that we are still in training. We are work in progress, So have a little grace with each other and celebrate even the small changes, changes we see in one another. Celebrate spiritual wins, answered prayers, baptisms, or even somebody taking the first step and being more vulnerable, right? Sometimes it can be that somebody just made it to the group, Maybe for you it's not such a big deal, okay, you got out and you went, but for some people that struggle, it's hard to even get out of the house and be in a big crowd. And for them just being here, being present at the group, it's a big celebration. It's something to appreciate, right? Also recognize those who serve, behind the scenes. Also, I think one of the harder things is to actually learn to be celebrated, right? Because you can celebrate whatever, but to be celebrated, it's a little more challenging.
Yes, why do I have to speak about that? This is really hard for me, the second part of this sharing. How to be celebrated. I haven't thought about that, and I'm someone who's this is hard for me. And I realize why. Allowing myself to be celebrated requires a lot of vulnerability and humility. That's why it's hard. Because I'm neither vulnerable nor humble. So firstly, we need to let others in, right? Share our wins, however big or small. That's how people will be able to celebrate us. That's how we allow ourselves to be celebrated. I'm always hesitant to share these small wins, thinking that they're insignificant or not worth celebrating. And again, this is my own pride getting in the way. But I realize that by doing that, I'm not only I don't allow people to see God at work in my life. And I found this beautiful statement that says, letting others in is an act of humility. It means saying, I'm not self-made, I'm God-made. And when He moves in my life, I'm going to let others see that. Because that is ultimately glorifying God, not us. So receive affirmation gracefully. I say that with the humility is really hard for me to accept that. Don't brush off encouragement. Receive it as a reminder of your own identity in Christ. This is again something that I find really, really difficult. And I need to be reminded that any affirmation is not mainly about me, but it's about God working through me.
Amen.
And that takes humility to set myself aside and see God working in me.
Amen. So yeah, don't be shy to share, testimonies. Your story could be an encouragement to somebody who maybe is going through the same struggle. Just to hear your little victory can be very encouraging for them. So let's be a kind of community where celebration becomes our second nature, right?
Yes.
So now we're gonna split into groups as we usually do, and I have a couple of questions for you. Maybe you want to write it down or think about it. First question is, so obviously, you can go through these questions or any other ones. The point is to stir up some conversations. First one is, when was the last time you truly celebrated something in your life, and what made it meaningful? The next question would be, how do you think celebration reflects God's character or intention for us? And lastly, in what ways can your small group grow in celebrating one another more intentionally? Right? So, should I repeat it?
Yeah, please.
When was the last time you truly celebrated something in your life, and what made it meaningful? How do you think celebration reflects God's character or intention for us?
Sorry, can you say that again?
How do you think celebration reflects God's character or intention for us? And the third one, in what ways can your small group grow in celebrating one another more intentionally? Thank you so much. And now we can split it to our little groups.